Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance, coming at you live. Weekly scrap number 5. Haters, complainers, and bears, oh my. What we're going to talk about today. So first thing I want to know, as always, where are you watching from? If you're catching this live or if you're watching the video, please let me know where you're watching from. I love to hear that. Another thing I want to ask you is, what are you reading? Big reason I'm asking that is I'm working on a project right now to put together a reading list for firefighters, people who want to grow and learn and lead in the fire service, and getting information from readers to put out there to other people, to what books to read. So tell me what you're reading right now, where you watching from, what are you reading right now? And yeah, with that, we'll get right into the weekly scrap. And I'm starting with talking about what I consider to be one of the biggest cancers in the, if not the biggest cancer, in the modern fire service. I mean, hell, in life. This destroys morale, camaraderie, teamwork. It destroys customer service. It is a cancer and is something that we as firefighters excel at. We are very, very good at it. And if you don't know what it is already, it is complaining. We are firemen. We love to complain. And the biggest thing about complaining is it solves nothing. It solves no problems. It actually attracts problems. Complaining is like an infection. The more you do it, the more problems you find. It is a disease, and if you're a complainer, then you actually help spread the disease, and it is time to stop it. One of the biggest things I have ever seen or observed, and don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of it. I love to sit at the firehouse kitchen table and complain about the problems I see. So don't think I'm sitting here throwing stones at houses made of glass, because I realize completely that I am really, really good at complaining. But the thing about complaining is it makes you feel like you are doing something about a problem. It makes you feel like you're actually accomplishing something by voicing and airing your opinion on what is wrong. But truth is, you're not. You're just literally just whinging. You are bitching and complaining and moaning. William Ward said, "A complaining tongue reveals an ungrateful heart." And I don't know if it's that simple. Like, if you can really melt it down to you're just ungrateful if you're a complainer. It's all about, but the essence of what he's saying is correct, is that it is all about attitude. And the biggest thing that I can say about complaining is that most of the issues people complain about are legitimate. It's not like people are making up things to gripe and complain and to whinge about. They are real issues. And I'm not trying to sit here and say that life at your department and life in general is just all rainbows, lollipops, happiness, and puffy cotton candy clouds. Complaints are usually rooted in a legitimate problem, a legitimate issue that needs to be addressed. But what I am going to say is that talking about it, griping about it, complaining about it, rarely does anything to fix the problem, if ever. I would go beyond rarely. It never fixes the problem or the issue. Anyone can point out a fault or a mistake or a shortcoming. It takes no skill. Andrew Carnegie, How to Win Friends, Influence People, one of the greatest books ever written. In fact, I did not read this book for so long because of its title. I always saw the title say How to Win Friends, Influence. I'm like, I don't need to know how to win friends, you know. So I always avoided the book. And Corporal Burham, ex-LJ, says you cannot complain and live a grateful life, and that is the truth of it right there. He nails what William Ward was talking about when he says complaints come from an ungrateful heart. And back to Carnegie, Corporal Burham pointed this book out to me and said, you have to read this book. And so I finally gave it a chance on his advice, and I can't lie. I mean, there's a reason why it's sold so many millions of copies and been reprinted and updated so many times. Big shout out to Corporal Burham for having me read that. But he says in that book, any fool can criticize, condemn, or complain, and most fools do. And that's what it comes down to. Any fool can point out a fault, but it comes down to, are you a talker on this side or are you a doer? And so complaining is always just talk. 95, and I'm being generous when I say 95. 95% of this world is full of talkers. And that includes the American Fire Service, modern fire service. When it comes to legitimate issues, you have three options when you see a problem. When you look out there and you see an actual problem, I'm sure you have more options, but basically you melt them down to three options. And the first option, option one, the option that 95, again, being generous, 95% of the people take is just to complain and gripe and bitch about that problem. And that's option one. And I think you guys understand what I think of that option. And option two, you can identify the problem and then you can take action and do something to try and correct the problem. That doesn't mean you are going to correct the problem, but you are going to take some action to try and remedy the issue. Find a way to make the problem better. That's what doers do. They take action. And the truth of the matter is, no great change in history has ever come from talking and griping and moaning about something. If you go back to 1776 and look at the founding fathers, and they were a group of guys who wrote a declaration, signed it, put their names to it, and sent it off, and throw in some tea in a harbor, a shot heard around the world, one if by land, two if by sea, and 245 plus years later, we have the greatest nation on earth because they were men and they were doers, not talkers. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying America's perfect. I'm not saying we haven't had our issues. You look at the civil rights movement, again, progress has been made on it, identified, and advanced because of doers, not because people griped and complained. And so that's option two. Identify the problem and do something about it. And the final option that you can do is you can recognize a legitimate issue, realize that there is nothing you can do to remedy the situation, and let it go. And that might be the toughest one to do out of all of them, because it's still a legitimate issue, but there's nothing you can do about it. And I'll talk about circle of influence and circle of concern. But legitimately, if you focus your time, influence, and energy on things you can actually affect, then over time you will discover that you will be able to affect things that before you couldn't touch. And so those are your three options to do and recognize and focus your power and energy. And if you do that consistently, eventually you will be able to affect those things that you see as problems. Joseph says, I would love to send you an article I wrote about but have yet to get it published. It really falls in line with this conversation. Brother, I would love to see your article. Send it to firehousevigilance@gmail.com. I will look it over and love to publish it on the blog and see what people think. Send it to me. Let's talk about it. Number two, after complainers, moving right into the next topic of conversation. And what you will discover is that if you do take what we're talking about in complainers, if you become someone who quits talking and goes and becomes the person who takes action, identifies a problem, takes action about it, tries to correct it. If you do this thing, then the next thing that is going to occur is you are going to accrue haters, detractors, people who will throw stones at you. And when you stop complaining, when you start becoming a doer, when you make that choice to quit spreading the infection, to become part of the solution, you can count on the haters to show up. Your detractors will be there in full force. And it's called the crab mentality. I'm sure most of you have heard of it before, but if you take a handful of crabs and stick them in a bucket, 5-gallon bucket, crab bucket, some of them will claw their way to the top of the edge of the bucket and begin to escape. And the rest of the crabs that are down in the bottom of the bucket will actually reach up and grab and pull those crabs back down. And it's a crab mentality. They don't want them escaping. They don't want them seeing what's out there. It goes back to Plato in the cave. And if you've never heard Plato in the cave, my chief, Deputy Chief Marler, actually made me watch a YouTube video on Plato in the cave, and it is so applicable to the American Fire Service. So go YouTube that and watch Plato in the cave to understand guys who don't see things the way that you see them once you're out of the cave. Those crabs that have escaped the bucket, going back and trying to explain to the crabs in the bucket, hey, it's better up here. So, but escaping that crab mentality, you're going to collect haters anytime you become a doer. And the big reason is that when you decide to quit being part of the problem, when you decide that you are going to become part of the solution and you're going to fix things, that holds up a mirror to everybody else around you. And when people see that reflection and they see, well, hold on a second, I really don't like what I see here. You know, they have two choices. They can either self-examine, get introspective and say, why am I not liking what I'm seeing? What do I need to do here to fix this? Or they can say, hey, quit holding up that mirror. This is your problem. It's your fault I feel this way. And that is a lot easier to do than to own yourself and own the choices you have made and figure out what you need to change. When there is something people don't like to see, it's so much easier to throw stones than it is to look inside and fix that problem. It's easier to throw stones. Don't Fit to Fight Fire. I love those guys. One of the big reasons for a change in my life is Fit to Fight Fire's whole "Would you want you rescuing you" mantra. I love that. But one of the things they posted about a week ago was, don't sweat the criticism from people you would not go to for advice. And I cannot think of a better piece of advice when it comes to haters and detractors than this. Is if you wouldn't go to the person for advice, why are you sweating what they're saying about you? Take pride in your haters. Take pride in your detractors. If you are doing the right thing, only the wrong people will question you. So look at the quality of their character, and you should wear it like a badge of honor. And this ties straight into the third part of the scrap that I want to talk about, and it goes right into it, and it's ownership. I always and firmly believe that the American Fire Service, the modern fire service, is a microcosm of society. It's like a little miniature petri dish of everything that's going on, and you can see it played out firehouse by firehouse, department by department. Hold on one second. It's a microcosm of society, and all the problems that society faces, you can see in your fire department, in the American Fire Service. It's just so funny to see it play out. Every problem in society that modern fire service faces is just the same. And I firmly believe that no matter what the issue is, that the American Fire Service is one level above the normal, what I call the real world, right? So perfect example is old dogs love to complain about the new generation, right? The old guard loves to complain about these new young firefighters coming into the fire service. And I think that's been going on as long as we've had firehouses, as long as we've had pumpers, as long as we've had fires. The old guard has always complained about the new guard coming in. And like recently, millennials were the buzzword. Oh, these new millennials coming into the fire service, they're going to ruin the fire service. And I believe that our millennials in the fire service are a cut above the millennials that the rest of the world gets to deal with. And I don't know why that is. I think the service aspect of being a firefighter, it just attracts I don't want to say a higher quality, but basically that's it, a higher quality of people in the fire service. And so I think our millennials are a cut above the average millennial. I think the level of ownership is higher just in the fire service in general. And when I talk about ownership, I'm talking about we all know what we need to be doing. If you honestly sit back and get a little introspective and say, what do I need to be doing? We can talk about it, whatever it is. We can say, we all know we need to be in the gym a little more. We need to be more active. We need to be working out. We need to be eating a little better. And that's just talking about like health-wise. We know what's killing firefighters. They're dying at the dinner table. They're not dying on hose lines. And we love our excuses. We love holding them near and dear and close to our heart. But that's what we need to do. We need to own our mistakes, our failures. We need to embrace our shortcomings and say, hey, enough of that. We're going to do what we need to do. And that's all about the ownership aspect. And Lord knows that I have enough issues that I need to own. And so I'm not sitting here preaching it like I don't understand that. But that's it. Complainers, They're just talkers. Don't be a complainer, be a doer. Haters, if you start being a doer, you will collect your haters. You will collect detractors. And finally, ownership, man. Understand that you're not perfect. You have your shortcomings. Own them. You know what you need to do. Start doing it. And that's the 3 things for the weekly scrap today. I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to talk about one of the greatest books that I have read. This book literally changed my life when I was about 27, 28 years old. This copy is from 1990. I don't know exactly when I bought it, but it is full of, as you know, I love to highlight, and it is marked up and colored to death. It's The 7 Habits, Highly Effective People, Stephen R. Covey. If you have not read this book, I think you are shortchanging yourself immensely. In a nutshell, there's 7 habits that highly effective people have in common. Stephen Covey studied these things, and this is what he broke them down to. Number 1, be proactive. Effective people are proactive people. They don't react. They're ahead of the game. Number 2 is begin with the end in mind. And he has this whole exercise where you pretend that you are at your funeral reading your eulogy. What do you want it to say? And start taking action today that will affect that eulogy. It's powerful stuff. And put first things first. He talks about the difference between being urgent and things being important and how those get intermingled and the importance of them. And then he gets into after the first 3 habits, which I'm mired in the first 3 habits. I love those first 3 habits, and I spend so much time trying to master those. But then there's Think Win-Win, which is all about negotiations and how to effectively navigate life where it's not all about the zero-sum game. Seek first to understand, then to be understood, which is about communication and relationship building. If you honestly seek to understand people first, then they will understand you. And then the final habit, or the 6th habit, is synergize. And that's all about interdependence. And then sharpen the saw, the 7th habit, which is just about revisiting all of them and becoming stronger and stronger in each habit. So anyway, I want to touch on a book every time I do a weekly scrap. And this is, if I could only suggest one book, if you put a gun to my head and said, you only get to suggest one book, this is that book. 7 Habits, Highly Effective People, Stephen R. Covey. Pick up your copy, read it. You will not regret it. A big thing I want to do moving forward is I want to try and contact other people who are readers in the fire service and say, what are you reading? What have you read? What did you think of it? And I want to start collecting that information, and I want to make a post on Facebook, or a photo album probably is what I'm thinking, where I take a picture of the book and then I put down that person's review of the book. And so other people who are interested in reading can come and say, hey, do I need to waste time on this book? Is this book worth reading? So if you were interested in doing that, send me a message, put a post, a comment in Facebook or on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, it does not matter where. Hit me up and say, I want to be a part of Firehouse Vigilance reading list and building that book list of books that are worth reading, and not only worth reading, the books that are worth avoiding, which is just as important. We only have so much time, so I'd love to find out which books I could skip and say, hey, okay, I get it. I got it all from the title, or I got it all from your synopsis. As always, contact me through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email, firehousevigilance@gmail.com, Firehouse Vigilance. Please let me know. If you let me know what you want me to talk about in the next weekly scrap, any questions, comments, anything you got. The last thing is, of course, how to join the Vigilant. We are at 35 states out of 50. 15 states to go. We stalled at 35. I don't know why. So I need to get this going. I probably need to call out the states that I need to put up a map next time. I'll bring that on weekly scrap number 6. A map of the states I'm missing so I can get it going, because I want to get all 50 states into the Firehouse Vigilant and sign the creed. So all it takes, go to firehousevigilance.com, sign the creed, send me a picture of that signed creed, and you are in. There's no monetary involvement. This is not about making money. This is about commitment to excellence. And I want to get to all 50 states and a firefighter in each one. So, Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance, the Weekly Scrap 05 in the books. Complainers, haters, and bears, oh my. Thank you guys for coming. I hope the tone stays silent for you unless it's burning. Everybody stay safe out there. Thank you.